Keep your theories to another. Do you want us to walk? Good afternoon. It is Thursday, June 11th. We're in the 2 o'clock hour. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here for the daily coronavirus update, issues that relate in Westchester County and around the county on our pandemic, and then the issues that spin off of that as well. In a few minutes, I'm going to bring up the mayor of the village of Ossining, who will talk about some of the issues that affect her in her village, both related to coronavirus as well as to the other issues that are on the table. Most of us are talking very much about the social justice issue that's at hand, the various protests that are happening around the area, and then, of course, budgetary issues that are at hand. We're not going to cover everything in any one of these updates. We just try to give you a little flavor of some things, and then after the mayor has a chance to speak, I will come back with some announcements about where we are with our parks and recreation activities, our bus system, and I'll touch base just briefly on where we are with financial information. We try to give you as much hard announcements of things that are new in each of these updates rather than just sort of general talk. And so with that, I'm going to just go over the numbers for today that have come from the New York State Tracker. As of today, we have 813 active cases of coronavirus in Westchester County. As I say every single day, the peak, which was now 8.5, almost 9 weeks ago, we had almost 12,000 active cases. So we're down to 813, and that's a continued diminution week after week after week. When we were in the thousands, down to less than 1,000, and now we're down to 813 active cases. And that does factor out the number of people who have been tested positive but have gone 2 weeks without contracting a full-blown case of the virus to become ill and so forth. That's out of 34,106 individuals that have tested positive for COVID. So the vast majority of those people have tested positive and then gone through the incubation period successfully, which is why the number of active cases we have is 813. We are a day off in our hospitalization number, but the last number we had the day before yesterday was 155 people hospitalized for coronavirus. That means folks who have the disease and it has reached a point at which hospitalization is necessary. It does not automatically assume they're all in ICU, but they are hospitalized. And 155 people is significantly down from the peak where we ran 1,200 people, just so you have that parameter. For those of you who watch this every day, it sounds like the same rhetoric every day, but not everybody has seen yesterday or the day before's program. So to the extent that you're watching now, you should know how the numbers correlate, and that at 155 hospitalization, that number's down dramatically, as is active cases. Another important number is the number of people we've tested overall. We have tested now 195,936 people for coronavirus. Now, the county is approximately 1 million people, so the number is easy to calculate. We're at 19.6% of all residents of Westchester County that have been tested at some time or another for the COVID virus. And what's particularly interesting is that the percentage of people that test positive has been dropping dramatically over these last 8 weeks. At one point in time, for every 3 people we tested, 1 was tested positive, 2 were tested negative. 2-to-1 ratio, 33% positive, 66% negative. That number is now about 17% testing positive, 83% testing negative, fully half of what it was in its peak. And we're not reducing the number of tests we're doing. Now, there are parts of the country that haven't tested. So when they say, oh, we only have 500 cases in a state, it's because you've done very few testing. We did yesterday over 3,500 tests for COVID virus yesterday, 3,500 tests, and we had a grand total of 30 people test positive out of 3,500. So that is very, very good news. And in fact, when Mayor Gearity speaks in a few seconds, some of the original numbers that came out of Village of Ossining, Village of Portchester, where we were yesterday, certainly the big cities of the county, the numbers were staggering in terms of the number of people tested positive. And the sense was, oh my God, this is everywhere. It's all around us. It's everybody's got it. But the number of people that have recovered have made the active cases such a relatively small number. So these are good signs. These are signs, subjectively, that our mask wearing matters, that our social distancing, as odd as it is, it's not the way we normally operate, and the society. And when we're clear of this disease, we're going to go back to, handshakes and hugs and the things that are the normal way we in our society culture interact with each other. But for now, these things apparently have an impact because we've been reducing the contagion. Overnight, we lost one individual, one fatality overnight. That is the same number from 2 nights ago. We had a slightly higher number the night in between. But one overnight death, tragedy that it is, compares to multiple numbers of deaths at our peak, 40, 45. We had one night we lost 72 Westchester residents in one night. Last night, we lost one individual. And we're hopeful that that level has really flattened out. We've seen a fatality rate when you compare the number of deaths against the number of people that tested positive as the universe, not all people in the society, but the number of people who tested positive, a 4.1% ratio, and that's been static now for about 2 weeks. And so what it really shows is that a very small percentage from this point forward are suffering the ultimate impact of this disease, which is death. But we've had now at 1,400 a lot of people. That's a lot of folks, 1,400 people. And so we hope that the flattening that we're seeing now of fatalities, we had one night where there were no fatalities within the last week. We hope that will start to become the case. And as I repeat every couple of days, not every day, because we established this over a month ago, we have a facility at Lenoir Preserve in Yonkers. It's one of our nature centers. Beautiful setting, the Whiteman Estate main building, right on the Broadway, North Broadway in Yonkers, right where Executive Boulevard comes off the sawmill and meets North Broadway. The Lenoir Preserve has around the back of it, with the big lawn that overlooks the Hudson and the Palisades, ribbons of remembrance, which is an area where we've set aside some trees and a little physical structure where you can take a purple ribbon. They're provided in a little birdhouse type structure, black magic marker, all sanitized, and you write something of remembrance to the person that you knew that you lost to COVID. And you can take that ribbon and tie it around either one of the trees in the grove, one of the branches of the trees, or onto a little wooden structure. It's symbolic, but it's a way to understand that all of this is not about some philosophical response or political response. People have died because of this. And when we lose people that we love, even if it's one person in a night, that person means something to some group of people out there. It was somebody's mother or father, somebody's brother, somebody's neighbor, somebody's coworker, somebody they knew from the house of worship that they attend, somebody that taught their kid in school, whoever it is, that person matters. And we don't want to forget that, but that's at the core of all of this. And if we can't have compassion for people at the end of their life, then what can you expect that we're going to show during the heart of their life when they're still healthy and able to do things on their own behalf? So I remind you about the ribbons of remembrance as part of understanding that a fatality was one individual overnight. So just to summarize, 813 active cases, down from the prior day, 890. Hospitalizations, most recent number 155, coming down again. 160 was the prior number to that. Fatalities up by 1 overnight from last night. 34,106 people tested positive, and we continue to fight the disease and drop it down step by step. Why is that important? Because we want to open up Westchester County's economic structure. We're in phase 2 now by a couple of days, and it's important for us to start to regain some of the economic momentum that has been lost over 3 months of shutdown. In the village of Ossining, which is one of the beautiful communities on the Hudson River. I live on the other side of the county, but it's easy to fall in love with the Hudson River and the topography of all of these communities. And Ossining Village is one of those particularly beautiful communities. You have the river that frames it, but you also have an interesting topography. There's a steep slope that takes you up to Route 9, and then there's some slope behind that. You have some very beautiful homes. You also have an urban setting where places are close together. People may think of Ossining because of the Sing Sing prison, which is an historic site. And I hope at some point in time that I'll be able to join Mayor Gearity for the opening of a museum down there. We're committed to it, and right now it's a little harder to raise the money necessary to get there. But it has an historic resonance, the village of Ossining, which came out of, I guess, the original name Sing Sing from the Indian villages. Victoria Gearity is the mayor of the village. She has been mayor now through a few terms. She's been very dynamic and energetic in her leadership of the village, and we're very grateful that she's here to tell us a little bit about the village of Ossining. So, Mayor Gearity, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, County Executive. And County Executive is very familiar with our community. He speaks knowledgeably about our beautiful village of Hills on the Hudson River. So I imagine that there might be some folks tuning in who are not as familiar with the village of Ossining. So I will give you a couple of trivia questions. We'll see how you do on this, County Executive. The village of Sing Sing, which was our original name, was the first charter village in Westchester County. We're one of 12 charter villages in New York State and one of 2 charter villages in Westchester County, which that village is the answer to this question as well. So 2 hints. What village in Westchester County has a greater population than the village of Ossining? You got this. You got it, exactly, Portchester. They have a greater population than the village of Ossining. There are 2 cities in Westchester with a smaller population than the village of Ossining.
Peekskill, Rye City.
You got it, Peekskill and the city of Rye, exactly, very good. Now, there are actually, because we are such a tiny footprint in the village of Ossining, just over 3 square miles, we are a very, very dense community, and we have greater density than a number of cities in Westchester County, Peekskill being one of them, New Rochelle, and even the city where we are right now, White Plains, because we have great density in our village, and all of those communities that I just mentioned and some others in Westchester, not surprisingly, as the county executive was mentioning, saw relatively high rates of infection in our communities. And in the village of Ossining, we have the great benefit of being home to the Open Door Family Medical Centers. They were founded in Ossining, and they were in this crisis at the forefront of testing. So we knew right away that there were a lot of people in our community who were testing positive for the virus. And from a healthcare perspective, that's great news, because those folks were getting the medical support that they need, and they were getting the guidance that they needed so that they could reduce the chance of transmitting the virus further. From a public messaging perspective, it was really tough for people in our community to see the numbers of positive cases going up and up and up. And we are so pleased, and the county has done a tremendous job at sharing the data, sharing the information with us on a daily basis, sometimes more than once a day, of all the changes that are going on with state government, and especially all the data. And it has been an evolution in the way that they share the data. And I get so excited when I see that map that shows our number of active cases going down and down and down. That's good news for Ossining and for all of Westchester. Some of the upsetting or disturbing, but maybe not surprising things that we learned about the impact of the virus is that it does not have the impact on all members of our community. And there is certainly a disparity of morbidity and infection among people of different races. And that was something that contributed to our understanding of our interconnectedness and our interdependence during this virus. Until a couple of weeks ago, we were really focused on how are we going to get through this pandemic. And I think people were appreciating our interconnectedness and our interdependence in a way that we have never before. It came down to just the air that we breathe. How I exhale is what you may inhale, and we could impact each other's lifespan as a result. And I think that set the stage for the level of activism that we have seen on matters of racial justice in the last couple of weeks. In our village, I guess like everyone, we try to figure out what we can do to affect change. How can we work to dismantle racism? And there are a couple of ways that we're focusing on at the moment. and that is through our working with our law enforcement and working with our youth. Ossining has been host of a few protests and marches and rallies, and they have been led primarily by young people. And we then invited a number of those young people who had been organizing conversations about racism down on our waterfront. We invited them to join us in a panel discussion this week to talk about how can our young leaders influence where we go from here on the youth leadership summer programming that we already had planned to move forward, and how can they help us understand what will be the principles, what will be the driving force, the focus for our youth bureau that has been underway. And that has been thanks in large part to working with our partners in county government. Thank you so much to the team of youth bureau experts in county government, to the Board of Legislatures for enabling the village to be the first community in decades to start a new youth bureau. And we're very excited for that. And we're especially excited that we don't have to go out and look for young leaders who can help us connect with what needs to happen for young people in our community. They have stood up themselves, and they are leading our conversations for our community to figure out how can Ossining work together as a team to dismantle racism. It is just such an inspiration to be with them. And I am also very, very fortunate to be the mayor of a village with a police chief who is continuing decades of dedication of community policing and doing it at a level that we've never seen before. Chief Sylvester was one of the chiefs who participated down in Washington in the 21st century police training when President Obama was in office, and brought back to our department additional programs, trainings, philosophies, opportunities to expand and strengthen the relationships between the local law enforcement and the community. And he was present, and fellow officers were present at and supportive at facilitating all of the programs that have happened in the last week and a half in Ossining. And he was very often asked to speak and talk about how the Ossining Police Department is standing beside all of the protesters in horror of what we have witnessed on video for, sadly, tragically, not the first time, this latest incident with George Floyd's murder on television. So we're very fortunate in Ossining, and I'm sure there are other communities who feel the same way, but I'm the mayor of Ossining, so I get to be especially proud of our community, and not just the police and all of their work, but community members that are able to recognize that and recognize the opportunity to strengthen that relationship now when it is so desperately needed. We are also the only community in Westchester County, I believe, and someone can please correct me if I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but we have a civilian police complaint review board already in place. It's in our code, and we had just appointed 3 new members. And they were scheduled to have a meeting in March when the whole world shut down. I was very inspired by a program that I watched a couple of weeks ago with President Obama, and I was excited to see that we had already done the 3 things that he recommends. As soon as that program finished, I got on the phone with one of our senior members of the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board and said, "What are you guys up to? We need to get you in a virtual meeting. How can I help facilitate that?" And so I'm very, very pleased that we have so many things in place to be able to address the very, very important conversations that are happening right now in a way that they've never happened before. And later this week, in the coming days, the trustees and I will be putting out a statement that details a number of the things that you've heard me reference today, as well as an alignment on paper of the training and practices that are already in place for the Ossining Police Department, having those written down in policy form and showing how they align with the 8 Can't Wait that we've seen come out of Campaign Zero that many community members have been asking me about that have to do with use of force in our police department. I'm so grateful that that philosophy was already in place. It was already how the training was undertaken. It was already how the practices are for our police department, and now it's going to be more formally written down for the police officers to be able to, there's no question, and the community will know that there's no question. So that's an important step in our ability to work as a community and the community to be able to trust their officials and law enforcement that we are all working together. And that brings me to a much lighter topic, and that is phase 2. I called my salon today. I'm very excited. Even gray-haired mayors with long, wild tresses eventually need a trim, and I am very excited. I'll be there next week, as will my children who have relatively long hair, but even they are getting a little tired of hair in their face. So the businesses that have not been open for months are very excited to be back in. From all the stories that I've been getting from local businesses, patrons are also very excited to have them there, and everyone is being compliant with the regulations and certainly understands the state guidelines, the reason for them, and the need for everyone to be actively following the guidelines with masks and social distancing. And our outdoor dining, it started this week. It's beautiful. It's so exciting to be outside, and as long as Mother Nature allows us to be, I think we're going to see many more people out on our sidewalks, sometimes a parking lot, sometimes a park, sometimes the pedestrian passage may be pushed into what normally would be metered spots to allow a restaurant to expand their tables to fill the full sidewalk and still allow for enough distance between pedestrians and patrons. So things look a little different, and people are very, very eager to be out there. It was lovely to see folks, and from what I'm hearing from businesses, they were very grateful that the village government was so proactive in reaching out to businesses and asking, how can we support you with these new regulations? And I have to also extend a thank you to the county and to Bridget Gibbons and all of the work that's being done with the economic development front. The news from the state changes literally every day on what is allowed and what the regulations are, and keeping on top of that is a challenge. So we're grateful to have a direct line of communication with the state that we can all access. And I don't know how many more people I can thank, but just generally, County Executive Latimer, thank you so much. Your team has been terrific in working with the communities, giving us all of the information that we need to be able to support our community and our residents just in the very best way that we can. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I don't think there's a better spokesperson for Ossining. You've just made a pitch that the rest of the county has seen, and I expect them to beat a path up 9A or up Route 9 and visit you very soon, as will I. Thank you very much. Mayor Victoria Gearity of the Village of Ossining. We will continue to have with these updates either when we're in the field, as we will be tomorrow in Peekskill, as we were yesterday in Portchester, or also when we're here in our county office building. We're inviting mayors of villages, mayors of cities, and town supervisors to join us and talk a little bit about what's happening in their community. Westchester County is made up of 45 different municipalities, and everyone has their own appeal, and everyone has what makes them unique, why people come to live in and love those communities. And at a time of crisis, the partnership between the village, the town of Ossining, the county of Westchester, as we're all trying to implement the rules that are coming down from the state, are all part of it. I want to also give a shout out to Catherine Borgia, who's the county legislator that represents Ossining. And she has done a brilliant job doing that. She's a former town supervisor and village trustee, so she knows her way around local government there. And a special shout out to my friend and twice my former colleague, Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff, who I served with in the State Assembly, served again previously in the county legislature, and she and Richard Wishney and so many others have represented Ossining so well. So we're very happy, Madam Mayor, you could be with us today. A few announcements about some policies. We'll take any questions when we're finished with this. First of all, we always try to balance off good news and bad news, as we've done so far. We have certainly opened up certain elements of our recreational programs. Those were not governed under the governor's executive order, so we had the opportunity to make some decisions. We did with our 6 public golf courses. We did with opening up Bicycle Sunday, and in fact announcing recently that we're going to extend Bicycle Sunday through the summer Sundays of July and August, as well as into the fall. And then also our opening of beaches, Croton Point Park Beach on the Hudson side and Playland on the Sound Shore side. And then now our intent over the next 2 weeks from this weekend, to open 2 of the public pools, county public pools at Saxon Woods and Sprain Ridge, and then to open 2 more the following weekend, which will be the 4th of July weekend in Wilson Woods and in Tibbetts Brook. So we also want to announce that because of the state's structuring of summer camps, we are able to announce that we will be opening some of our county summer camps, our day camp programs. Muscoot Farms is a very popular program. Muscoot Farms right off of Route 100, just south of Route 35, in the town of Somers in the northern part of the county. It's a wonderful working farm, and that program is an outdoor program, and that is going to be conducted this year. In fact, it may be sold out already. This camp and all the other ones have certain parameters that will be a little different than what you may have experienced last year with it. It's sort of a hybrid structure. We have to follow state guidelines. We will allow less children than we would otherwise, but we're opening it, and that's what's the important part. We're going to have registration opening for any of these summer camp programs. There are more that I won't mention today, but we do expect masks to be worn because we want to have a functioning society, but we want to do it within the reduction of the spread. And the numbers that I gave you at the outset of the program shows that we've succeeded in that so far, but we can't be overly confident about it because we don't yet have a vaccine for the disease, and we don't yet have an antiviral treatment if you contract the disease. So with the summer camps, the Muscoot Farm program, 10 campers per program, used to be 14. It's a slight reduction. It'll reduce probably by about 100 young people, the number of kids that will be able to be part of that program. But we're happy to announce that we will have the Muscoot Farms program. We're very happy to announce that Cranberry Lake Preserve in North White Plains and Lenoir Preserve in Yonkers will have outdoor summer day camp programs this year. We're happy we were able to do that. Same situation, registration is going to be a little bit lower than the normal conditions, a reduction in Cranberry Lake to 144 kids per summer this year, down from 192. That's part of the reduction that's necessary. Similarly at Lenoir. The camp programs may be canceled if there's rain because we do not have enough available indoor space to accommodate the campers with social distancing. That's different from past years where we could fit them in some inside areas that are appropriate. The Marshlands Conservancy in Rye, right on the Boston Post Road, very close to the Mamaroneck border, will be an outdoor-only camp, and it will operate in a half-day format, but it will be underway this year. And we have an interesting outdoor family camp planned for Trailside Nature Museum, which is up in Cross River, the town of Lewisboro in the northeastern part of the county. And it involves from what was normally a regular camp to a new type of camp. You register for a family camp box, which you receive Friday or Saturday before the camp begins. The box itself contains certain activities and supplies for a week's worth of activity at Trailside, which families will then participate in with the children that are part of the camp. So it's a little bit different way to do things, and I want to compliment Kathy O'Connor, Peter Tartaglia, and the Parks and Recreation Department for coming up with a creative way in this particular setting to do a day camp program. Our children hole-in-one golf camps will continue ages 10 to 17. It's under the direction of PGA pros in Westchester County at all 6 of our courses, Dunwoody in Yonkers, Sprain Lake in Yonkers, Saxon Woods Golf Course in Scarsdale, Maplemore in White Plains, Mohansick in Yorktown, and Hudson Hills in Ossining. All of those camps will be underway. That's not the full complete list of summer day camps, but the state has now authorized that we can have day camp programs. Many communities found out about this much later in the game. Some have announced they've canceled their day camp programs. Some were holding off hope, as we were, trying to hope we'd get that chance to do it. So we're going to do those camps and more. That is the good news in today's report. The bad news is we've made the decision to cancel all of our ethnic festivals that we would normally have this year. Now, by now, we would have been well underway in the month of June. We usually start them in the month of May, primarily at Kensico Dam Plaza. Some of them are at Ridge Road Park. We made the announcement perhaps about a month ago that we would have none of the programs until mid-July. I think we said actually July 20th was the cutoff date. We were hoping that we would be at a point at which we could resume the ethnic festivals by mid to late July, and then use September and October potentially to rebook the ones that we had to cancel prior to mid-July and get a full season and just started them in July. We're at a point now where we don't know if the state is going to be able to authorize that type of gathering, even in July. The ethnic festivals are fabulous. They involve food, music, vendors, dance, folks under a major tent to shield from the sun, and then walking out and about. They're always packed, and it's a joyous day, whatever the group is. If it's an Hispanic group, if it's a Jewish group, if it's Polish, Irish, whatever that ethnic group is, it's just a wonderful day. I try to attend all of them, and I get quite a kick out of them. But Now that we're in this situation, we realize that we probably couldn't begin those programs until at least August now, and we could never get them all in with the amount of time available. So we've made the policy decision to cancel them for 2020. It's a missed year. We intend to come back with a schedule for 2021 that will be complete. Obviously, there's lots of organizations that are involved in sponsoring these things, co-sponsoring them, depending on the structure of them, and we intend to have a full complement for 2021. But in the same way that we're working to try to figure out how can you open a beach, how can you open a pool, and still do it safely and maintain health, there are some things that you can't do, and in this particular case, we've drawn the judgment that the ethnic festivals cannot happen this year. Some of the municipalities that have summer concerts may be able to put in a concert or two before the end of the year. That would be wonderful, analogous to what we're doing, except that we have a series of ethnic festivals, and to do some of them and not all of them would not really be fair. We'd be prioritizing some groups and not others. So that's the decision we've made. We hope it's the right decision, and it involves us not advancing the spread. And again, we intend to have a full complement of those with the new year. We also want to announce that our BLine bus system, which is under the direction of the county government, will begin or resume full service as of Monday, June 15th. We had reduced service because of the closure of industries, people who were laid off, unemployed, or on furlough from a host of different businesses. Now that we're through phase one, and by next Monday we'll be halfway through phase two, businesses are coming back. And as people come back, the public transit needs start to rise. If we run the reduced schedule that we've had, we would be, by definition, packing too many people into the bus routes that we have. So we go back to full bus route service, and that will allow us to continue to have safe social distancing guidelines in place and maintain the system. The system is still without cost. It's still a free system. We're doing that because we're expecting people to continue to enter into the back of the bus, not through the front of the bus where you pay. And so they have the benefit of not having to pay bus fare. That is a loss of revenue to the county. But by the same token, we think that is the appropriate way to protect the driver and to protect the passengers. And so therefore, we forego the revenue. This is only because of the pandemic. For those who are accustomed now to enjoying the bus system without cost, that is not a permanent decision. That is a decision made because of the circumstances that we're in, and it applies all across the county. We're working very closely with Liberty Lines, our partner, to ensure the safety of all bus operators as we resume full service, and hopefully that will be well received by those in the public who use the BLine bus system. As New York City has started the process of opening, but not advanced it as far as we have, we know there's certain people that use the BLine bus system to connect to the New York City subway system. And of course, the city subway system operates through the MTA, on a different set of circumstances, but our bus system will continue to connect for those people that do enter the subway system or the commuter rail system, depending on what your point of interception is as we go forward. Final point I want to mention in our update today are the finances of the county. We have alluded to the fact more than once that there's a dramatic loss of revenue, not just by the county government, but by all municipal governments and the state government over the course of this pandemic. When businesses were shut down by gubernatorial executive order to try to reduce the contagion, that has worked. That has also meant that the normal sales process stopped. The sales tax revenue that drives many of our budgets tanked, and along with it, hotel tax revenue tanked. We lost revenue, as I just mentioned, for the bus system. We don't have a full-blown recreation program this summer. We've done as much as we can do, but in those areas that we can't do, we lose revenue because we're not running certain programs. And so the loss of revenue has created a significant hole in our county budget, and every government has that. The state has reported there may be $61 billion in the hole on what amounts to about $180 billion budget. We have seen initial estimates in loss of revenue that could range from $181 million to $247 million on a $2.1 billion budget. Now, when you run a municipal budget of $40 million as a round number, $181 million loss is an astronomical number. When you run a state government of $180 billion, then $181 million is not a significant number. But for us, $181 million to $247 million loss of revenue is phenomenal. The range is explained by decisions yet to be made by the state government that may make that 181 number, which is the low end, a higher number. And we won't know what that will be until the state determines if they're going to cut payments to the county for a variety of different things, cut reimbursements. So we assume the worst, and we come up with an out number that could be the depth of loss of a budget gap, and the lower number hopefully is the one that we come closer to. We had already taken actions, which we reported, that saved us $21 million off of those numbers. So we took the 181 to 247, we brought it down to approximately 160 million to 225, 226 million in gap. Still a huge gap, just $20 million less. We've taken those actions, Board of Legislators agreement. We're now looking at actions in the vicinity of $50 million, a little less than that. It still does not touch the delivery of services that the county is required to fund, and it does not at this point touch our workforce numerically. And if we can accomplish those things the next week, 2 weeks, we'll take that expected gap of now 160 to 226 and take it down to $112 million gap, $178 million gap. So that is a significant further reduction of the gap. We may have access to some federal money through the coronavirus thing that could help us in theory, but we won't know until the feds outline exactly what the parameters are for receiving that money and what tracks against it. And whatever we do, we're going to do everything we can do to take the 2020 budget and bring it in on schedule. We do not have any flexibility with tax rates, which is good news for the property taxpayers. Your property taxes will not go up in the year for the year in order to close this budget gap. We have to use other mechanisms to do it. When we sit down to do the 2021 budget, and we're on a calendar year, fiscal year, villages are on a different cycle. They've just, in fact, completed their budget cycle, knowing a better idea of what kind of a gap we were. Any of us, the towns, 4 of the 6 cities in the county that are on calendar year budgets, we put our budgets together, adopted January 1st. This wasn't anticipated, so this is a hit to the budget in the middle of the budget year. And so we want to try to make sure that we don't have to go through closings of services. And when we announce that we're opening pools and beaches, oftentimes when you have a mid-year budget crisis, you close those things. You shut down the transit system. You shut down the recreation system because you need savings. We believe we can close the budget out, but we'll need a little luck, a little help from Washington, D.C., a little help from Albany, and we're going to try very hard to be diligent and accomplish that. So in a long report, basic statistics, great report from Mayor Gearity of the status of Ossining Village. Some good news and some not good news about our recreation programs. We're opening summer day camps. We are closing off the ethnic festivals for the full year, all the ethnic festivals. We're opening the BLine bus system to full service on June 15th, and we're working on the fiscal policies that will set us back. Catherine Chaffee, any questions from the press? We have none. In any event, if anyone from the press has been tuned in, obviously they're welcome to give us a call. We'll be happy to talk offline about any issue before county government, certainly these issues. We appreciate you watching. I don't intend for them to be long and drawn out. I do want to try to provide you very specific facts, very specific announcements, and I think it's very valuable that you had a chance, if you did not know her already, to meet Victoria Gearity and the work that she and her team in Ossining are doing. And tomorrow we'll be in Peekskill, and we'll talk a little bit about what's happening in that city. And next week, we'll, as part of our updates, include other municipalities so you can get a good flavor of what Westchester County is facing. In any event, George Latimer, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock for our normal COVID conversations. If you want to go online, Ken Jenkins had a conversation today, our Deputy County Executive, with Tejas Inshallah, who is head of our Human Rights Commission. And tomorrow we'll have another COVID conversation at 11, 2 o'clock tomorrow, the update, scheduled to be in Peekskill. And we hope you stay safe.